be open with your manager. So I wasn't open at first with my second manager at EMC because I didn't think it was a big deal. It was a hobby. Until it gained that visibility, I didn't think it was going to have that much of an impact, as it did. But I was open when I had my next manager, my new role as a social media specialist. I had to, if I wasn't going to tell him what was going on, he was going to find out. Because a few searches, you can figure out a lot about someone and what they're doing online. So it's better to be open up front, tell them what you're doing before they have to find out on their own, because that's when it becomes something negative. The second thing is be careful with online perception. So a few very interesting things are going on right now. From when I talk to a bunch of recruiters, I find out what's going on in their mind. If someone is tweeting too much during the day, they probably won't even get a job offer. I know it's kind of hard to understand, but if you're too active on social media or you're not active on social media, it's going to hurt you both the same. So that's one thing I've learned. And for instance, if you're tweeting all the time during the day, or if you're blogging during the day, or if you're active on social media, and this is if you don't even have a job too, then it can help you or hurt you depending what's online, because they're going to be checking. And then keep your personal brand in check. So here's the other interesting thing is who pays you? You always have to think about that. So if your company pays you and you're too focused on your personal brand, then you're probably not going to work there too long. And it's not going to look good because on your resume, a lot of what you do is you work for a company, whether you're doing consulting, whether you're an employee. So if you're not actually delivering results to the company, then you could be famous in the blogosphere. It's still not going to help you because your next client or whoever is going to ask your company what you've done, and they're going to say, not a lot. He's just focused on his career. So that's another thing I've learned too along the way. So if you have a pulse, you can make an impact. What I'm trying to say with this slide is that everyone can make an impact now, from the intern who might only work there for 6 months to the CEO, of course. And the fact that anyone can make an impact means that everyone has to understand the law, the new relationship between employee and employer. And that new relationship is that it hasn't been quite figured out, actually, to be honest. But the fact that everyone can make a difference means that everyone in this room, everyone outside of this room, has to pay attention to what the type of discussions that are going on today about this topic. The common questions that I get asked that are just asked in general. The first one is, will my employee leave? So if someone is building a strong brand, is getting very known online, will they leave? Because this probably opens up new opportunities for them. A lot of employers are scared that they don't want to lose their top talent, because typically the top talent are the ones that are not going to just work 9 to 5 and pour in a lot of value to a company, but go the extra mile and do more for them as well. So the next thing is, will security be breached? So a lot of companies block social networks at work. Raise your hand if your company blocks social networks at work. What industry are you in? IT. IT. Anyone else? IT? IT. Okay. So certain industries, certain companies block social networks as well. And then who owns profiles? So this guy, Jeremiah Oyang, who I look up to, he's got a good blog, and he actually interviews a lawyer and says, who owns your profiles? I see a lot of people have different accounts that are like Steve CNN, or that person's name, and then the company's name. It's like, who owns those profiles? Who owns profiles in general? And so all these type of questions are very interesting, because it's not completely figured out. Maybe it's in the employee contract. I don't know. We'll probably figure it out today, hopefully. Are there guidelines? A lot more companies now have guidelines for employees. What can they post? They have to post a disclaimer. And to be honest with you, I don't think a disclaimer really does anything. If you see a disclaimer on a blog, it's still the brands you're associated with, the company you work for, the association you work with, even your family, friends, everyone you associate with can be harmed by what you say, or can make them look good. That's how I look at it. And are we doing this during work hours? A lot of companies are like, oh, this is going to hurt productivity. We can't let them hours, so that's another issue that comes up as well. And then companies are scared, so this gives you a little research on companies blocking social media sites. 54% companies, and then another one is 76%. So I mean, even if you look even in the middle, more companies block them than don't block them. And then 3 different situations arise that I've kind of figured out. The first one is your brand has nothing to do with your job. Now, when I say your brand, I mean it's really what you're passionate about, what you have expertise in, what you think you're going to do for the long road. It's not just a single job. And if your brand is something that you love and do outside of work, is not something you're doing for work, it could be a conflict there. It depends. It really depends on the situation. Your brand is your job. This is interesting. So if you're, let's say, a marketing manager, and then outside of work you have a marketing blog, so that what you do outside of work can support what you do at work, definitely, because you can become more of a thought leader in marketing, and then you might get more respect at work. And then the other one is your brand and your job are similar but different. So I've actually fallen into this category because personal branding touches a lot of people. When they think of personal branding, they think of social media right off the bat because it's just something that gets talked about in those type of conversations. So they automatically assume. Another thing that's interesting, actually, you see 2 pictures here. One guy has a suit and one guy is a model. I was actually talking to this one person who's like, oh, I have 2 websites. One, I'm a male model, and then the other one, I'm talking about finance. And I'm like, oh, wow. So what I told him is he almost has to have an opinion for his male model site, because what ends up happening is if he gets Googled, then you might get multiple sites. You might get his LinkedIn profile, which might represent him as a financial analyst, and then you might also get his modeling site second. And so the people we work with, because they're probably Googling him, if they find the male model site, it might be weird in the office a little bit. You don't know. And so I think understanding your different identities and how they play with each other is something that you might want to start thinking about too. And the struggle, my career versus my company's success. So where do you strike balance? Who are you promoting when? All of these different ideas you might want to start thinking about. How much of this is helping me? How much of this is helping my company? And blogs actually help you and your employer. This study came out by eMarketer. I think it's really fascinating, and it reveals exactly the value of blogging, social media in general, to the individual and to the individual success, which helps the company. So for instance, your brand, how does blogging help your brand? 71% say that increase their visibility. It's obvious, right? Because the more content you throw online, the more visible you get in search engines. It's going to increase your visibility, and people in the industry who are looking for information about those topics are going to go to you. The other thing is 36% speak at industry events. So if you're a voice online, you can be a voice offline. You can actually speak not even just webinars, but speak at different events. This one, and 25% of people are using their blog as resumes. So the blog, in my opinion, is becoming more valuable than a resume because it says more. A blog, a lot of people have their resume as one page in their blog, but that's not really what comes up front. What comes up front is their voice, their opinions on different topics that they're enthusiastic about. And then your company's brand. 63% of people make purchasing decisions because of blogs, and the attribution is actually very interesting because these people are going to blogs by employees, and they're wanting to buy products of their companies. So, for instance, Dan Zarella's blog, not to point him out there because he's speaking later, but they go to his blog, they're like, wow, he's very interesting, he's doing some cool work for HubSpot. Oh, well, let's look into HubSpot. That might be something we want to purchase for our small business. So that's the logic there, is that employees, the rockstar employees, can actually support financially the company at some level, directly sometimes. And 18% of employees use blogs as recruiting tools. We're all recruiters now. We're all recruiters. We all have networks accounted for. There's numbers attached to it. There's people attached to it. And you can actually, anyone can source it. I don't know how much money your companies pay, pay $1,000 to get a referral, but it's very real now. It's much easier than it was 5 years ago. 56% of employee blogs help companies become thought leaders. So it's not even just you becoming a thought leader in the industry, maybe speaking at events, but you're actually helping your company seem more hip, more cool, and so you get it.